Because in the seminars, I always mention that very soon, as we go into the fifth dimension, we will have no borders between countries. So someone is asking the question, how close are we to the elimination of borders? It's difficult to put a date on it. I thought it would have already happened, to be honest. One of the reasons there will be no borders is because as we, as individuals, find ourselves or find more of ourselves, we take back our power. As we take back our power, no one will be sending us to war to fight anyone else's war. We just don't go. It just doesn't fit. So then, if there's no need for war, there'll be no need for borders. Another thing is, the aliens are going to appear, not necessarily land. They're already here. Most of them are already here. They simply cloak themselves. Now, as the aliens are walking around with no passports and no IDs and not worried about borders, it'll be very difficult for someone to look you in the eye and say, where's your passport and do you have a visa? Because all you do is ask, does he have a visa? That's another reason we won't have borders. It's not that we're going to become all friendly and lovey-dovey and we're going to say, okay, no more borders. It's not that. Also, let's not forget, states exist. No, I'm saying this backwards. In order to have a state, we need an enemy. So this is why we keep creating enemies out of thin air, so that we can have a state and then have a government, of course. In the fifth dimension, we will still be having governments, but they will be playing the role of, let's say, a mayor of a city, rather than making all these laws and telling us what we can and cannot do. Simply because we will have our power. So to be honest, I don't know exactly when the borders are coming down. I think they're going to happen slowly. But every time I take a client in astral travel to the future, they always mention that, wow, there are no borders. We can just go from one place to the other. There are regions still with names, and you can still say, I come from that area or this area. But there is no need for a visa to go there. And all these things we hear on the news about immigration and about a flood of immigrants, these are all to keep us separated and to keep us angry at someone else so that we do not focus in, so that we do not look in. But once we have started looking in, and once we find more of ourselves, we simply stop watching the news. Once we stop watching the news, there will be no stories about a flood of immigrants coming. Because nothing will scare us anymore. And once these stories stop scaring us or taking our focus away from us, we will stop seeing them. They just won't be produced. There is a whole industry producing stories to keep us in fear of someone else. There's always the other person or the others. Many times we'll put a nationality to them. Most times we'll put a religion to them. That it's those that are coming to get us. And we won't be happy when those come, when the others arrive. This is all done to keep us separate. I don't mean separate like to keep us not loving each other. That's not where our problem is. They're done so we can separate ourselves from the others, and then they can rule over us. So the issue here is not so much when are the borders coming down. The issue is We need to start feeling like we are living in a world with no borders and stop mentioning our nationality all the time. This causes separation. Once we stop caring what our nationality is or what our passport is, then there will be no need for borders. We need to remember this. Whatever is outside of us is inside of us first. We need borders right now because that's how we feel. We feel like we want to be separate from the others. And that's why the borders still exist. So once we stop feeling like this, the borders will come down.